In the vast darkness before creation, before gods walked the realms, and before humanity drew its first breath, there existed a tree. Not an ordinary tree, but a presence so immense, so fundamental to existence itself, that without it there would be no cosmos to speak of. This is Yggdrasil, the world tree of Norse mythology, the axis upon which all creation turns, the bridge between worlds, the shelter of gods and mortals alike. Close your eyes and imagine, if you will, an ash tree of such staggering size that its roots plunge deep into 3 separate wells scattered across different realms, each spring feeding it with waters of different natures. Its trunk rises through the center of all existence, connecting 9 distinct worlds like beads upon a cosmic thread. Its branches stretch so far into the heavens that they cradle entire kingdoms of gods, reaching beyond sight, beyond the limits of mortal comprehension, holding within their embrace the very stars themselves. This is not merely a tree. This is the skeleton of reality, the framework upon which the Norse understood their universe to be built. Every root, every branch, every creature that dwells within or upon it serves a purpose in the grand design of existence. Yggdrasil is simultaneously shelter and scaffold, sanctuary and crossroads, the nurturing mother of worlds, and the gallows upon which knowledge is purchased at the price of suffering. The name itself carries layers of meaning that unfold like the petals of an ancient flower. The most widely accepted interpretation translates Yggdrasil as the horse of Ygr, where Ygr, meaning the terrible one, is among the many names of Odin, the All-Father of the Norse pantheon. But why would a tree be called a horse? The answer lies in one of the most profound acts of sacrifice in all mythology. The poem Havamal describes how Odin hung himself from a windy tree for 9 days and 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, denying himself food and water, peering down into the void below. Though the poem never explicitly names the tree as Yggdrasil, generations of readers and scholars have understood this windy tree, of which no man knows from where its roots run, to be the world tree itself. In the metaphorical language of Norse poetry, a hanged man rides the gallows as one would ride a horse, and through this grim wordplay, the tree becomes known as Yggdrasil, Odin's horse, the steed of his torment. From this self-inflicted ordeal, suspended between life and death, Odin grasped the secrets of the runes, those powerful symbols of magic and meaning that would shape the destiny of gods and humans alike. But before we can fully understand the majesty and mystery of this cosmic tree, we must first journey back to the very beginning of things, to the time before time, when the world itself was forged from violence and chaos, when the first breath of life emerged from the collision of ice and fire. Before Yggdrasil, before the gods, before even the concept of existence as we understand it, there was Ginnungagap. The name itself evokes the emptiness it describes, the yawning void, the gaping abyss, a chasm of pure nothingness that stretched in all directions without limit or boundary. This was not the gentle emptiness of a clear sky, or a blank canvas waiting for paint. This was primordial absence, the space before space, the darkness before light had been conceived. But Ginnungagap did not exist in perfect isolation. To its north lay Niflheim, the world of ice, mist, and bone-chilling cold. Imagine a realm where frost gathers so thick it forms mountains of ice that tower into the frozen darkness, where the very air itself seems to have frozen into a haze of crystalline particles that drift through the perpetual twilight. Within Niflheim bubbled Hvergelmir, the roaring kettle, a spring of such ancient origin that from its waters flowed 11 rivers collectively known as the Elivaga. These rivers of poison and ice coursed forth from the spring, flowing out into the void of Ginnungagap, carrying with them the essence of cold so profound that even the toxic waters began to freeze, layer upon layer building up like sediment deposited over eons. To the south of the great void lay Muspelheim, Niflheim's perfect opposite in every conceivable way. Where Niflheim was cold and dark and misty, Muspelheim blazed with primordial fire. This was not the warm, comforting fire of a hearth or the crackling flames of a forest campfire. This was fire in its purest, most primal form, flames so bright they would sear the eyes of any being not native to that realm, heat so intense it could melt stone into rivers of molten rock, an inferno that had burned since before time began and would continue burning until the end of all things. Guarding this realm of eternal flame stood Surtur, the first of the fire giants, wielding a sword wreathed in flames that danced and flickered with apocalyptic promise. For untold ages, these two opposing forces existed in balance, separated by the emptiness of Ginnungagap. The frozen rivers flowing from Niflheim extended further and further into the void, building up layers of ice and frost. The searing winds from Muspelheim pushed against the cold, meeting the frozen mists in the space between worlds. And there, in that meeting place, something miraculous occurred. The heat from Muspelheim's flames began to melt the ancient ice of Niflheim. Drops of water formed from the thawing frost, falling into the void, quickened by the opposing forces that had created them. From these drops of melted ice, animated by the meeting of fire and frost, the first living being emerged. This was Ymir, the primordial giant, also known among his descendants as Aurgelmir. Ymir was immense beyond measure, a being of such size that his very body would later be used to construct the physical world. But in these earliest moments of existence, he simply was, a living creature born from the void, sustained by the elemental forces that had created him. Ymir was not alone for long. From the same melting ice emerged another being, though of an entirely different nature. This was Ardhumla, the primordial cow, whose 4 udders flowed with rivers of milk that provided sustenance for the giant Ymir. While Ymir drank from the cow, Ardhumla herself licked at the salty, frost-covered stones of ice that remained from Niflheim's frozen rivers. She licked, and over the course of 3 days, her constant attention to these stones revealed something extraordinary hidden within the ice. On the first day of her licking, a man's hair appeared, golden and bright, visible through the translucent ice. On the second day, the man's head emerged fully, his features noble and strong. And on the third day, the ice fell away completely, revealing a man in his entirety. This was Buri, the first of the gods, the progenitor of a lineage that would shape the cosmos. Buri was beautiful where Ymir was crude, orderly where the giant was chaotic, and from him would descend the gods who would bring structure and meaning to the universe. Meanwhile, Ymir, the giant, began to reproduce in a manner befitting his primordial nature. As he slept, he began to sweat profusely, and from the sweat under his left arm emerged two beings, male and female, the first of the frost giants. In an even more unusual act of generation, one of Ymir's legs began to father offspring with his other leg, producing a six-headed son. Thus began the race of giants, the Jotnar, who would forever be associated with the forces of chaos and wilderness that stood in opposition to the order the gods would later establish. Buri, the first god, had a son named Bor, and Bor in turn took as his wife Bestla, who was herself a giantess, daughter of the giant Bolthorn. This union between the divine and the gigantic would produce three sons who would change the cosmos forever. These three sons were Odin, Vili, and Ve, and they would become the architects of the world as the Norse knew it. The three brothers looked upon Ymir and the ever-growing tribe of frost giants, and they saw chaos, entropy, a universe spiraling toward formlessness and void. They decided that from this chaos they would forge order. They decided that Ymir must die so that something new, something structured and meaningful could be born. And so they killed him. The battle, if it can be called that, was catastrophic. When Ymir fell, so much blood poured from his massive body that it flooded the entire realm of ice, drowning all the frost giants save one. Only Bergelmir and his wife escaped in a boat or chest, surviving to become the progenitors of a new generation of giants who would forever remember their ancestors' murder and forever harbour enmity toward the gods who had committed it. But the brothers were not content merely to slay the giant. They had a grander vision. They took Ymir's enormous corpse and from it constructed the entire physical world. From his flesh they shaped the earth itself, the soil and stone upon which all living things would walk. From his bones they fashioned the mountains, great peaks that would rise toward the sky like the skeleton of the world laid bare. From his teeth and the fragments of broken bones they created rocks and pebbles scattered across the landscape. From his blood they formed the seas, the lakes, the rivers that would flow across the earth, giving life to all things. From his skull they crafted the dome of the sky itself, holding it aloft at four corners, each corner supported by a dwarf. These four dwarfs were named Nordri, Sudri, Ostri, and Vestri, representing the four cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west, and from Ymir's brains tossed up into the air, they made the clouds that drift across the heavens. Even Ymir's eyebrows found purpose in this new creation. The brothers fashioned from them a great wall to encircle and protect Midgard, the middle realm, the world of humans. This wall, made from the giant's brow, would serve as a boundary between the ordered world of mortals and the wild, chaotic lands beyond where the surviving giants dwelled in their realm of Jotunheim. To give light to this newly formed world, the gods captured sparks and embers from Muspelheim, the realm of fire, and placed them in the sky to become the sun, the moon, and the stars. They set these lights on paths across the heavens, creating the cycle of day and night, marking the passage of time itself. And it was into this world, this cosmos fashioned from violence and vision, from the corpse of chaos transformed into the body of order, that Yggdrasil either already stood or came to stand. Here we encounter one of the mysteries that the surviving sources leave tantalizingly unclear. The precise moment of Yggdrasil's origin remains uncertain in the Norse sources. Some accounts suggest that the great tree existed even before the ordering of the cosmos, standing as an eternal presence through which all else came to be arranged. Other traditions imply that it emerged alongside or shortly after the world's creation, growing from the newly formed earth to connect the realms the gods were establishing. The Volva in Völuspá speaks of remembering when Yggdrasil was a seed, suggesting the tree had a beginning, yet its nature seems to transcend simple chronology. What we can say with more certainty is that once the world was formed, once the realms were established, Yggdrasil stood at the center of it all, its roots drinking from 3 great wells, its trunk rising through the middle realm, its branches spreading out to shelter and connect 9 worlds in the intricate cosmology of Norse belief. These 9 realms, arranged around and within Yggdrasil's structure, form one of the most intricate cosmic geographies in any mythology. Yet here too we encounter mysteries, for the sources rarely specify their exact positions with clarity, and the precise spatial arrangement of the 9 worlds remains a matter of scholarly interpretation and reconstruction. At the highest reaches of the tree, supported by its uppermost branches, lies Asgard, the realm of the Aesir, the primary tribe of gods that includes Odin, Thor, Frigg, and many others. Asgard is described as a fortified realm, protected by walls containing many magnificent halls. Among these is Valhalla, Odin's hall where the Einherjar, the warriors who died gloriously in battle, feast and fight each day in preparation for their role in the final battle of Ragnarök. Also in Asgard stands Gladsheim, the great assembly hall where the gods gather to make decisions, and Vingolf, described as a sacred dwelling, connected to Asgard by the Rainbow Bridge. Bifrost stands Heimdall, the watchman of the gods, ever vigilant, possessing sight so keen he can see 100 leagues, and hearing so acute he can detect grass growing in the meadows and wool growing on sheep. When the end times come, when Ragnarök begins, it will be Heimdall who sounds the great horn Gjallarhorn to summon the gods to their final battle. near Asgard, though whether it should be counted as a separate realm or a region within Asgard itself remains debated, lies Vanaheim, home of the Vanir, the second tribe of gods associated with fertility, wisdom, and the ability to see the future. The Vanir include deities such as Njörður, god of the sea and seafaring, and his children Freyr and Freyja, perhaps the most beloved of all Norse gods, associated with love, beauty, fertility, war, and death. On a branch of Yggdrasil, somewhere in the middle regions, sits Midgard, the middle realm, the world of humans. Midgard is encircled by a vast ocean, and within that ocean dwells Jormungandr, the world serpent, so immense that he wraps entirely around Midgard, holding his own tail in his mouth. This serpent is one of the 3 children of Loki, born from his union with the giantess Angerboda, and like his siblings, he is destined to play a crucial role in Ragnarök. Also, somewhere in the middle structure of the tree lies Alfheim, realm of the light elves, beings of great beauty and luminous appearance. The light elves are described as more beautiful than the sun, though relatively little detail about them has survived in the sources. Alfheim was given to the god Freyr as a tooth gift, a present given to a child when their first tooth comes in. Below the earth, in the deeper regions toward the roots, lies Svartalfheim, home of the dark elves or dwarfs, skilled craftsmen who dwell in caves and underground halls, working metal and stone with unparalleled mastery. It was the dwarfs who created many of the gods' greatest treasures, including Thor's hammer Mjolnir, Odin's spear Gungnir, and Freyja's ship Skidbladnir, which could sail through air and across water, and could be folded up small enough to fit in a pocket. In the far reaches from Midgard lies Jotunheim, the realm of the giants, beings who represent the raw, untamed forces of nature. Despite being called giants, the Jotnar are not always described as particularly large. What defines them is their opposition to the order represented by the gods, their association with wilderness, chaos, and the forces that existed before and will exist after the gods' ordered cosmos. Many of the gods have complex relationships with the giants. Odin himself has giant ancestry through his mother. Thor is constantly battling giants, yet his wife Sif and many other gods have giant blood or connections. Deep beneath the earth, cold and far from the light, lies Niflheim, the world of ice and mist that existed even before the creation, home to the well Hvergelmir, from which flow the rivers that helped birth Ymir. This is a realm of frost and fog, of primordial cold, and in its depths dwells Níðhöggr, the dragon who gnaws at Yggdrasil's roots. Even deeper, or perhaps in another direction of deep, lies Helheim, the realm of the dead, ruled over by Hel, another of Loki's monstrous children. Hel herself is described as being half living flesh and half corpse, and her realm is where most of the dead go, those who die of sickness or old age rather than in glorious battle. It is a cold, dark place, not necessarily a place of punishment, but rather simply the land of the dead, where they exist in a shadowy continuation of life. Finally, there is Muspelheim, the realm of fire that, like Niflheim, existed before the creation of the world. This is the home of the fire giants, ruled by Surtur, who will play a devastating role at Ragnarök when he rides forth with his flaming sword to set the world ablaze. These 9 realms exist in relation to one another through their connection to Yggdrasil, though precisely how they are spatially arranged, whether in vertical layers or in some more complex geometry, is something the sources do not make entirely clear. What is clear is that Yggdrasil connects them all, serving as the axis, the structure, the path by which beings can travel from one realm to another. But what of the tree itself, its physical nature, the waters that sustain it, the creatures that inhabit it? These details are where the surviving sources become more specific, painting a portrait of a living, suffering, enduring entity that is far more than just a passive framework for the cosmos. The tree is described as an ash, though some sources seem uncertain even about this, suggesting that perhaps no one truly knows what kind of tree Yggdrasil is. It is said to be the greatest and best of all trees, its branches spreading over all the world and extending up over the sky. The tree is evergreen, always bearing leaves, always alive, yet it also constantly suffers and endures attacks that threaten its existence. Here we encounter one of the puzzling contradictions in the surviving text regarding the structure of Yggdrasil's root system. According to the poem Grimnismal from the Poetic Edda, 3 roots support Yggdrasil, extending to 3 different realms. One root extends to the realm of the Aesir, the gods. Another extends to the realm of the frost giants, where once Ginnungagap existed. The third extends down to Niflheim, to the ancient well Hvergelmir. However, Snorri Sturluson, in his prose Edda, written several centuries after the poems of the Poetic Edda were first composed, describes the roots somewhat differently, speaking of 3 wells, one beneath each root, and placing them in different configurations. These contradictions remind us that Norse mythology was never a fixed, systematic theology, but rather a living tradition that varied across time, place, and teller. What the sources do agree upon is that there are 3 great wells associated with Yggdrasil, each of profound importance, each feeding the tree with waters of different natures and powers. The first and perhaps most significant is Urdarbrunna, the Well of Urd, also called the Well of Fate. This well is described as being beneath one of Yggdrasil's roots, and beside it stands a beautiful hall from which emerge 3 beings of immense power. These are the Norns, named Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld. The Norns are female beings who shape the destiny of all creatures, gods and humans alike. Modern interpreters often map their names to temporal concepts. Urd as past or that which has become, Verdandi as present or that which is becoming, and Skuld as future or that which should become. However, some scholars caution that the Old Norse words themselves don't purely denote chronological periods, but rather aspects of fate, debt, and the unfolding of consequences. What is certain is that these 3 figures wield enormous power, carving runes into wood, laying down laws, choosing the fate of every child, born into the world. Each day the Norns draw water from the well of Urd, and they mix this water with the mud or clay that lies around the well. They pour this mixture over the roots of Yggdrasil, and this is what keeps the great tree from rotting and dying. The water of this well is described as so holy, so sacred, that everything it touches becomes as white as the membrane inside an eggshell, a detail that speaks to its purifying, transformative power. The Well of Urd is also where the gods hold their court each day. They ride across the rainbow bridge Bifrost to reach this place, and there they sit in judgment, make their decisions, and tend to the business of maintaining the cosmos. 2 swans live in or near this well, and from them, it is said, descended all other swans. The second well is Mimisbrunna, the Well of Mimir, which lies beneath another of Yggdrasil's roots. This is the well of wisdom and knowledge, guarded by Mimir, a being of great age and understanding. The waters of this well contain profound wisdom, such that anyone who drinks from it gains deep knowledge and understanding. Odin himself desired to drink from this well, and when he asked Mimir for permission, Mimir demanded a price. The price was an eye. Odin, in his unending quest for wisdom and knowledge, did not hesitate. He plucked out one of his own eyes and gave it to Mimir, and in exchange he was allowed to drink from the well. This is why Odin is often depicted as having only one eye, and why that missing eye is sometimes said to remain in the well, gazing out from the depths of Mimir's waters, seeing things that even the All-Father himself cannot see. At Ragnarök, when the end times come, Odin will ride to this well one final time to consult with Mimir, seeking counsel on what is to come, though by then, of course, fate has already been set in motion, and even the wisdom of Mimir's well cannot prevent what must happen. The third well is Hvergelmir, whose name means something like roaring kettle or bubbling spring. This is the ancient well that existed in Niflheim before the world was made, from which flowed the 11 poisonous rivers that helped create Ymir. Beneath the route that extends to Niflheim, this well still bubbles and roars, and it is here that countless serpents dwell, writhing in the dark waters. It is here too that Níðhöggr makes his home. Níðhöggr is a dragon, or perhaps a great serpent whose name means the one who strikes with malice, or the one who strikes full of hate. He dwells in Niflheim at the base of Yggdrasil, and he is constantly gnawing at the tree's roots, chewing at them, working to undermine the very foundation of the cosmos. He is joined in this work by countless other serpents, all working to damage and destroy the tree. This constant attack from below is one of the many sufferings that Yggdrasil must endure. But the tree suffers from above as well. In its highest branches, in the canopy that reaches beyond sight, there dwell 4 stags named Dain, Dvalin, Dunir, and Durathror. These deer wander among the branches, feeding on the leaves and bark, consuming the tree even as they live within it. Their precise names and the meanings of those names have been debated among scholars, and their etymology remains uncertain, but their role is clear enough. They are another force slowly eating away at Yggdrasil, another element in the pattern of decay and renewal that characterizes the tree's existence. The tree also suffers rot in its trunk, decay that the Norns work to combat with their daily application of the sacred waters from the Well of Erd. Despite their efforts, the tree is not invulnerable. It trembles and groans under the weight of existence, and when it trembles, all the 9 worlds shake with it. Yet the tree is not only a passive sufferer, it is also home to a complex ecosystem of beings who live their lives within and upon its structure. We have already mentioned Níðhöggr below and the 4 stags above, but there are others as well, and the interactions between them create some of the most vivid moments in the mythology. At the very top of Yggdrasil, at the highest point of its crown, there sits an eagle. This eagle is unnamed in the sources, but Snorri's Prose Edda tells us that it is wise, knowing many things. Between the eagle's eyes sits a hawk called Vedrafolnir, whose name might mean wind-bleached or storm-pale, though like so much in these myths, the exact meaning is debated. The eagle sits in the heights, looking out over all the worlds, while Vedrafolnir sits between its eyes, perhaps serving as the eagle's eyes in some metaphorical sense, seeing what the eagle sees. Down in the depths, gnawing at the roots, we have Níðhöggr, the malice striker, the dragon of decay and destruction. Between these 2 extremes, connecting the heights and the depths, runs Ratatoskr the squirrel. Ratatoskr is one of the most memorable creatures in Norse mythology, though his role is fairly simple. He runs up and down the trunk of Yggdrasil, carrying messages between the eagle at the top and Níðhöggr at the bottom. But these are not friendly messages. Ratatoskr is described as carrying insults, provocations, hostile words back and forth between the eagle and the dragon. He is sowing discord, maintaining enmity, ensuring that the tension between the heights and the depths never resolves into peace. His name possibly means drill tooth or boar tooth, suggesting his restless activity, his constant motion up and down the tree. Why does Ratatoskr do this? The sources don't tell us. Perhaps he delights in mischief. Perhaps he is simply fulfilling his nature, playing the role assigned to him in the cosmic pattern. Or perhaps he represents something deeper, the necessary tension between opposing forces, the conflict that keeps the cosmos dynamic rather than static, alive rather than dead. Without the eagle and the dragon in opposition, without their eternal enmity mediated by Ratatoskr's messages, perhaps the tree would fall into stasis, into a frozen, unchanging state that would be its own kind of death. This theme of decay and renewal, of suffering and endurance, permeates everything about Yggdrasil. The tree is constantly under attack from multiple directions. Serpents gnaw its roots, stags eat its branches, rot attacks its trunk. Yet the tree endures. The Norns water it daily with sacred water. The tree continues to grow, continues to bear fruit, continues to shelter the 9 worlds within its structure. This suffering is not incidental to Yggdrasil's nature. It is essential to it. The tree is not perfect, not invulnerable, not eternal in the sense of being unchanging. Instead, it is alive, and like all living things, it is vulnerable, mortal in its fashion, subject to decay and damage. Yet it endures not despite this vulnerability, but because of the constant care it receives, the daily maintenance performed by the Norns, the sacred waters drawn from the wells at its roots. This presents us with a cosmos very different from many other mythological systems. Yggdrasil is not a fixed, perfect structure ordained by an omnipotent creator to last forever. It is a living being that requires constant maintenance to survive. The gods themselves depend on its survival, yet they cannot simply ensure its survival through divine fiat. They must work at it, must tend to it, must accept that the tree suffers, and do what they can to sustain it despite that suffering. We see this same principle at work in the gods themselves, who are not immortal in the absolute sense. The gods maintain their youth and vitality by eating golden apples grown by the goddess Idun. Without these apples, the gods would age and grow old and eventually die. Again, we see the pattern. Existence, even divine existence, requires constant renewal, constant effort, constant tending. And yet, despite all this care, despite the daily watering of the tree, despite the god's consumption of the golden apples, the cosmos is not permanent. It is destined to end, destined to fall in the cataclysm called Ragnarök, the fate of the gods, the twilight of the powers. Ragnarök looms over Norse mythology like a shadow cast backward in time. It is the future that colours the present, the ending that gives meaning to everything that comes before. And Yggdrasil plays a crucial role in both the signs that precede Ragnarök and possibly in what comes after. The signs of Ragnarök's approach are numerous and terrible. First will come Fimbul Winter, the Great Winter. 3 successive winters with no summer between them. Snow will fall from all directions. Frost and biting winds will prevail. During this time, the bonds of kinship will break. Brothers will kill brothers. Fathers and sons will turn against each other. All social order will collapse into chaos and violence. Wolves will chase the sun and moon across the sky and finally catch them, devouring the lights of heaven. Stars will fall from their places. The earth will tremble with continuous earthquakes. Mountains will crumble. All fetters and bonds will break. This includes the bonds that hold the great wolf Fenrir, another of Loki's monstrous children. The gods, fearing Fenrir's strength, had bound him with a magical chain called Gleipnir, crafted by the dwarfs from impossible ingredients: the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. But at Ragnarök, even these impossible bonds will break, and Fenrir will run free, his jaws gaping so wide that his lower jaw scrapes the earth while his upper jaw presses against the sky. The seas will surge over the land because Jormungandr, the world serpent, will rise from the ocean depths, thrashing onto the shore in his fury, causing the waters to flood the land. From Niflheim will come a ship named Naglfar. built from the uncut fingernails and toenails of the dead, carrying an army of giants commanded by Loki, who has broken free from the bonds that held him as punishment for his role in the death of Balder. From Muspelheim, the realm of fire, will ride Surtur and the sons of Muspel, Surtur bearing his flaming sword, ready to burn the world. And at this time, Yggdrasil itself will shake. The great tree will tremble and groan, and nothing in heaven or earth will be unafraid. Heimdall, the watchman, will sound his horn, Gjallarhorn, its blast heard in all the 9 worlds, summoning the gods to the final battle. The Aesir will don their war gear. Odin will ride to consult with Mimir's head at the Well of Wisdom one last time. The Einherjar, the warriors who have been feasting in Valhalla, will pour forth from its 540 doors, 800 warriors streaming from each door, marching to fight alongside the gods. They will all ride across and the rainbow bridge will shatter under the weight of so many warriors riding across it all at once. The gods and the Einherjar will ride to a plain called Vigridr, where the final battle will take place. There, the gods will face their ancient enemies in single combat. Odin will fight Fenrir, and the great wolf will swallow the Allfather, ending the life of the chief of gods. But Odin's son Vidar will avenge his father, stepping with a special shoe into Fenrir's lower jaw and grasping the wolf's upper jaw with his hands, tearing the beast's mouth apart and killing him. Thor will face Jormungandr, his ancient enemy, the serpent he has battled before. Thor will slay the serpent with his hammer Mjolnir, but he will only be able to take 9 steps afterward before he himself falls dead, poisoned by the venom the dying serpent sprays upon him. Freyr will fight Surtur, but Freyr will fall because he once gave away his sword as a bride price to win the giantess Gerda, and now he faces the flaming giant weaponless and is killed. The god Heimdall and Loki will meet and slay each other. Tyr and the hound Garma will kill one another. All across the field of Vigridr, gods and giants, heroes and monsters will kill each other until almost none remain. And then Surtur will hurl fire in all directions. The 9 worlds will burn. The earth will sink into the sea. The stars will disappear from the sky. Smoke and flames will rage. Heat will scorch the sky itself. And what of Yggdrasil? Here we face considerable scholarly discussion and unresolved questions. The sources are not entirely clear about the tree's ultimate fate. The Völuspá, one of our primary sources for Ragnarök, describes the tree shaking and groaning at the onset of the end times, but it doesn't explicitly state that the tree itself is destroyed. Some interpretations suggest that Yggdrasil endures, that it survives even the flames of Surtur and the sinking of the earth, standing as a testament to continuity even through destruction. Other interpretations suggest that if the tree does perish, it is reborn along with the world. For according to some accounts, particularly those in Snorri's telling, Ragnarök is not the absolute end of all things. After the fire and flood, after the death of the gods, something remarkable happens. The earth rises again from the sea, green and fertile. Grass grows, fields produce crops without being sown. The sun has a daughter who takes a mother's path across the sky, illuminating the new world. Some of the gods survive or return. Balder, who died before Ragnarök through Loki's treachery, emerges from hell to rejoin the living. Balder's brother Herder, who unknowingly killed him, also returns. Vidar and Vali, sons of Odin, survive the battle. The sons of Thor, Modi and Magni, survive and inherit their father's hammer Mjolnir. These gods gather in the place where Asgard once stood, and they find there the golden game pieces that the Aesir once played with in happier times, and they sit and remember, speaking of the old days, of the great serpent, of Fenrir's fury, of all that was. And remarkably, 2 humans also survive. Deep in a place called Hodmimis Holt, variously identified or associated with Yggdrasil itself or a grove connected to it, a man named Leif and a woman named Leifthrassir hide during the destruction. They survive on the morning dew, and when the world is renewed they emerge to repopulate the earth, becoming the progenitors of a new race of humans. This vision of rebirth and renewal has inspired considerable scholarly interpretation. Some scholars argue that the rebirth narrative is a later addition, influenced by Christian ideas of apocalypse and resurrection, added to the mythology after Iceland's conversion to Christianity around the year 1000 CE. The sources that describe this rebirth in detail are all late sources, all post-dating Iceland's conversion. Earlier references to Ragnarök focus on the destruction without clearly describing what, if anything, comes after. What we can say is that the sources as they survive suggest a cosmos that moves through cycles of creation and destruction, where endings contain the seeds of new beginnings, where death is followed by rebirth. Whether this was the understanding of pre-Christian Norse peoples, or whether it reflects the interpretation of medieval Christian scribes who recorded these myths, we cannot know with certainty. The sources we have are the sources we have, and they must speak for themselves. What is clear is that Yggdrasil, whether it endures through Ragnarök or perishes and is reborn, represents something that transcends simple mortality. It is a symbol of continuity, of connection, of the underlying structure that gives form to existence even as the specific contents of existence change and transform. As we come to the end of our journey through the branches and roots of Yggdrasil, through the wells that feed it and the realms it connects, through the creatures that inhabit it and the gods that gather beneath it, we can perhaps appreciate more fully what this tree represented to the people who believed in it, and what it still represents to those who study it today. Yggdrasil is ultimately a tree of life and death, of suffering and renewal, of connection and separation. It shows us a cosmos that is organic rather than mechanical, alive rather than inert, constantly in flux rather than fixed and stable. It presents a universe where everything is connected, where nothing exists in isolation, where the actions of even the smallest creature can affect the greatest patterns of existence. The squirrel Ratatoskr, tiny and seemingly insignificant, nonetheless plays a role in maintaining the tension between the eagle and the dragon, between the heights and the depths. Nothing is too small to matter, nothing so great that it can escape the pattern, the weaving, the fate that encompasses all things. The tree teaches us that existence requires constant maintenance, constant care, constant renewal. The Norns must water its roots daily or it will fail. The gods must gather at the well of Urd to maintain their counsel and preserve their order. And even with all this care, the tree suffers, decays, is constantly under attack. This is not a flaw in the design, but the nature of existence itself. Nothing lasts forever without effort, without sacrifice, without the willingness to endure pain and loss, while continuing to nurture and maintain what matters. Yggdrasil also reminds us of the price of wisdom. Odin's ordeal on the tree, his willingness to sacrifice himself, to hang in agony for 9 days and nights, reflects the understanding that true knowledge is not easily gained. The deepest truths cannot be learned from books or taught in schools. They must be purchased with experience, with suffering, with the willingness to peer into the abyss and let the abyss peer back into you. This is a dangerous wisdom, one that can destroy as easily as it can enlighten. But it is also the only wisdom that truly transforms, that makes a god of a seeker, that opens the hidden paths between worlds. The tree's ultimate fate at Ragnarök, whether it endures or falls only to rise again, teaches us about the nature of endings and beginnings. The cosmos, as the Norse understood it, was not eternal in the sense of continuing forever unchanged. Instead, it was cyclical, moving through ages of creation and destruction, each end containing the seeds of the next beginning. This might seem pessimistic, suggesting that everything we build and create and love will eventually be destroyed, but it can also be liberating, reminding us that no ending is truly final, that life persists even beyond death, that the creative impulse cannot be permanently suppressed, even by the most comprehensive destruction. In our modern age, facing our own potential endings, our own struggles with meaning and purpose in a vast and often incomprehensible universe, Yggdrasil offers us a model for understanding our place in existence. We are like the creatures on the tree, each playing our role in the greater pattern, each affecting and affected by all the others. We are also like the tree itself, constantly under pressure, constantly needing renewal, suffering and enduring and growing all at once. We are branches reaching toward light, roots digging into darkness, trunk holding firm against the winds of change. The world tree stands at the center of the cosmos, but it also stands at the center of the Norse imagination, representing their deepest understanding of how reality is structured, how different forces and beings relate to one another, how existence itself is maintained against the constant pressure of chaos and entropy. It is a teaching tool, a symbol system, a metaphor that contains within it entire philosophies about life, death, fate, knowledge, sacrifice, and meaning. As you drift off to sleep, imagine yourself sitting beneath the branches of Yggdrasil, feeling the rough bark against your back, hearing the rustle of leaves high above where the stags graze, the distant chattering of Ratatoskr as he runs up and down the trunk, carrying his messages of discord and connection. The sacred waters drawn from the 3 wells flow through the tree's roots, sustaining its immense life. Feel the tree's slow pulse, its ancient life force, the way it suffers and endures, dies and renews itself in endless cycles. The tree connects all things, And so, in connecting yourself to the tree, you connect yourself to all the 9 realms, to all the beings that dwell within and upon it, to the gods gathering at the Well of Erd, to the Norns weaving fate, to Heimdall watching from the Rainbow Bridge, to Thor defending Midgard, to Odin hanging in self-sacrifice to gain wisdom. You become part of the pattern, part of the weaving, part of the great cosmic dance of creation and destruction, order and chaos, life and death that plays out endlessly within the branches and roots of Yggdrasil, the ash tree that supports all worlds, the bridge between realms, the axis upon which everything turns. And so our journey through the roots and branches of Yggdrasil comes to a close, though the tree itself endures, as it has endured since before the beginning, and will endure until whatever end awaits it, only to rise again in whatever form the next cycle of existence requires. We have travelled from the void of Ginnungagap to the halls of Asgard, from the frozen depths of Niflheim to the flames of Muspelheim, following the structure of the tree that connects all these places, all these possibilities, all these modes of being. The Norse people who developed these myths are long gone, their voices silent for over 1,000 years, their original understanding of these stories lost to time and conversion and the simple passage of ages. But the stories themselves persist, and in them we can still hear echoes of a profound and sophisticated understanding of existence, a view of the cosmos that is both alien to our modern minds and strangely familiar, both difficult to grasp in its totality and intuitively compelling in its symbolism. Yggdrasil stands as a reminder that existence is not simple, not easy, not guaranteed. It must be maintained, must be cared for, must be defended against the forces that would unmake it. But it also stands as a promise that existence endures, that life persists, that even beyond the most total destruction, the creative principle reasserts itself. Green shoots growing from scorched earth, new worlds rising from the ashes of the old. If you found this journey into Norse mythology restful and enlightening, I hope you'll continue exploring with us. Consider subscribing to Myth Drifting for more sleep-friendly deep dives into the myths and legends that have shaped human understanding across cultures and throughout history. Let these ancient stories guide you into peaceful rest, their wisdom seeping into your dreams like the morning dew that collects on Yggdrasil's bark, sustaining life even in the darkest times. Sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with the wisdom of the ages, the strength of the world tree, and the promise of renewal that comes with each new dawn.